Thank you, everyone, for joining. I'm Pete Calabrese, CEO of CanAm Investor Services. CanAm Investor Services is the wholly owned broker-dealer affiliate CanAm Enterprises, one of the largest and certainly most successful regional centers in the history of the EB-5 program. I'm pleased to have with me today Mr. Rohit Turkhud of CSG Law. Rohit, hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Pete. Great to be here. Always a pleasure. CSG Law is the second largest law firm in the state of New Jersey with about 200 lawyers. Full service law firm, does pretty much everything. They have offices in New York City, which is where I sit with the immigration group. The immigration group is actually pretty diversified with people in Philadelphia, people in Salt Lake City, Utah, and North Carolina. I do pretty much all the time, the EB-5 work representing investors. We have two superstars who do a lot of EB-5 work on the project side, and we pretty much undertake all kinds of business immigration law as well.
Awesome. Thank you for that. So what I want to talk about with you today here is the Visa Bulletin, because a conversation that we have with anyone who comes in is always, when am I going to actually get my immigration? It's one of the biggest questions that you're going to get to it. And another question that we'll often be talking about and how this pertains really specifically to a certain part of the EB-5 program is every EB-5 investor looks at this and says, I want to know when I'm going to be able to get my immigration. It's the natural feeling that you're going to have. But there's also, for many investors, especially those who are within the United States already, they are going to be looking to concurrently file for their adjustment of status. Current filing, we've talked about in a bunch of different places, so I'm not going to talk much about that. But one of the real criteria for being able to concurrently file for an adjustment of status is that the Visa Bulletin is current. And so talk about that Visa Bulletin. And sometimes, the Visa Bulletin can be a little bit confusing. And I think that it would be really helpful, Rohit, to get a really great explanation of the Visa Bulletin, what the different charts mean, and when someone says, is my Visa category current, that they can look at that and have a little bit more understanding what that is. So if you don't mind, I'm going to pull up, I think I have a slideshow here of the Visa Bulletin that of basically the month that we are currently living in here now. We are within the Visa Bulletin for now. Today is July 2nd of 2024, depending on when you might be viewing this video with us. So the Visa Bulletin that we're looking at is for July of 2024. So when you're looking at this data, that's what specifically this data is looking at. But Rohit, I'd like for you to maybe just explain in generalities what the Visa Bulletin is telling people, and then what they can glean from this as they are trying to understand what it's trying to tell them.
Thanks, Pete. Certainly we'll give it a try. 2 words, Visa Bulletin, which are more mysterious than many mysteries that we either watch or read, that's for sure. Trying to demystify this is itself a mystery, but we'll give it a shot at a very general level. I think over the years that I've practiced, and those are many, I have never seen anybody figure out an accurate answer for the Visa Bulletin as predictability. I don't think the best of us have figured that out. In any case, just as a quick reminder, anybody can Google this by simply saying Visa Bulletin, and they'll be able to figure that out. So we're not getting into the what's the website, what's the URL, etc. That's a done deal. We're going to assume that you've seen this before or that you're familiar with it. We know that EB-5, EB stands for employment-based, and we know fifth preference deals with the EB-5 visa categories. We realize when you look at these charts that there are 2 charts that one is usually looking at or looking for. One is the final action date, which is obviously the one that we all love to sit and watch, because that's when we know that we hope to get our green cards at that time if the date is available. I'm going to not use the word current. I prefer to use the word available, because that's more applicable, in my opinion, to each individual case. So if you look on the right side of your screen, it says final action dates, and we're looking at the yellow highlighted areas of the 5th unreserved category. We're looking at India on the top. So again, since we're talking about India-born investors, I'm just focusing on that for right now. So the unreserved category is referring to applications filed pre-March 15, 2022, when the new RIA Act went into effect, plus those visas which are beyond the set-asides. Now, what do we mean by the set-asides? Again, two areas that you can see highlighted over there is the rural, which covers 20% of the visas that are issued are set aside for rural areas or rural projects. And you've got 10% set aside for high unemployment. Just a quick difference over there, or one advantage which seems to be high in people's considerations for rural areas is the fact they have what's called priority processing. Not going to get into that subject for another conversation, but you've got the rural and that you've got the 10% high unemployment. Of course, you have the 2% for infrastructure, which has never been used so far. So we're just discounting that for the moment. We're saying so reserved, the unreserved is anything that's outside of these three. When you look under the India column and you see the date of December 1, 2020, what does that mean for you as an investor? What it means is that during the month of July 2024, which is the month that Pete is using as an example since we're on that date right now, during the month of July 2024, anybody who has a priority date, meaning the date of filing the EB-5 petition, whether you filed concurrently or not. It's the petition filing date. So the receipt notice that you get for the form I-526E or the 526 pre-RIA, meaning pre-March 15, 2022. As long as your date of filing is before December 1, 2020, not on or before, but before December 1, 2020, is eligible to either receive their green card during the month of July or is eligible to file the adjustment of status application during the month of July. Now, there's one caveat over here. Now, if you look at the chart on your left side of the screen, which says B, which is dates for filing, that may well have an impact over here as well. Because if you look over there under employment-based preferences, and it gives you under fifth preference, it's telling you the quota and what the distribution of the quota is under India. And I think we have, if we can look at the next slide over there, Pete, maybe there's a bit, I think we have an expansion on the filing dates. Okay, terrific. Dates for filing. So we're looking at page number 5 on top, which is at the bottom. You're looking at employment-based, and you're now looking at, if you look at those two slides, you're now looking at an unreserved category which says April 1, 2022. And you've got the set-asides which say current. The letter C means current, which means there's no backlog, there's no waiting time. Now, what is the significance of April 1, 2022? Actually, the relevance of that is a reference to the 3 lines that Pete has highlighted before the chart. It actually tells you about visiting a website which is dealing now with the USCIS. This is much more applicable, or in fact, only applicable if you're filing adjustment of status. It's not applicable to consular processing, i.e. those folks who are outside the United States and not eligible for adjustment of status. So this is going to apply to those who are eligible or aspiring to file adjustment of status. You need to go to that link to see whether in that month, meaning the month of July 2024, is the USCIS allowing you to use the chart B, which is the dates for filing, or they're asking you to use chart A, which was the preceding chart, which talked about final action dates. Unfortunately, this can get a little confusing, but you do need to look at that link because this can change on a month-to-month basis. It often varies depending on whether it's the start of the immigration's fiscal year, which is October 1, or it's towards the end of the fiscal year, which may be the last quarter, where they may not have visa numbers available and may insist or require that you use the final action dates and not the filing dates. So yes, this can get confusing, as Pete correctly said. Yes, it's not a bad idea at all to discuss this with your immigration lawyer to better understand. it's probably not such a great idea to discuss this with your friends over drinks and try to figure this one out. So I think it's important to have that consideration in mind. It is important to take a look at it and to see how it's whether it allows you to file the adjustment of status application or not. What I would say is please don't try to look in a crystal ball, because that's what you're asking your lawyers to do. If somebody says they can predict what's going to happen next month, usually, as long as there's some basis for it, such as reading the Visa Bulletin, such as seeing what does the Visa Bulletin say that they expect to happen. And you will hear people from the State Department, the best of the best, addressing us, when I say us, I mean immigration lawyers, addressing trade organization audiences as well. And there will always be the disclaimer that this is not something that we can predict mathematically, which means it's not 100% predictability. Yes, you find regional centers, attorneys, everybody in the business trying to be very positive about what's likely to happen. But that's not an accurate prediction. That's an almost impossibility.
Mm-hmm. No,
So you've
I
got to
think
look for people in the US who are looking to file adjustment of status. You must look every month, somewhere around the 15th of the month, because that's when the visa bulletins are released. They can change from a month-to-month basis. You're looking at that, and if you're in the United States and filing adjustment of status or looking to file adjustment of status, you should always be checking Chart A and Chart B to see whether you can file it. If you're outside the United States and you're trying to get a sense of whether you may be eligible to get interviewed, or if you are being interviewed, whether you're eligible to get your visa during that month, you always have to look at the final action dates, not the dates for filing.
Awesome. Fantastic. Super helpful. And yes, and for those people who are looking to file for an adjustment of status, as I mentioned before, your visa category would need to be current. So as long as your country of chargeability and the type of project that you're looking at is current on the Visa Bulletin, you do have the ability to concurrently file for your adjustment of status.
Yeah.
Now,
just to clarify, sorry, just wanted to clarify, it doesn't have to be the letter C, as long as their priority date is before the date that's on the date, they're eligible to file adjustment of status.
Thank you. A great distinction. Well, thank you so much, Rohit. This is very helpful. We get questions about the Visa Bulletin often, how to interpret it, how to look at it. So this is very helpful. We really appreciate you going through this with us. And as always, we appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Pleasure and privilege are both mine.